In the dying light of the 80s, when the neon buzz of Reagan's America flickered over strip malls and cracked asphalt, a few renegades in the desert built something out of nothing. You see, Supercross wasn't born in a boardroom. It was born on the pavement out behind Power Plus Cycles, a little bike shop in Apple Valley, California. While people were listening to MC Hammer and trying to figure out how Buster Douglas just destroyed the unbeatable Iron Mike, Bill Ryan was trying to figure out what exactly he had gotten himself into. You see, Bill thought he was doing something great for his friends and for his fellow racers, but he soon found out that others saw this new brand as a threat to their bottom line. Couple that with BMX racing essentially having a recession, how in the world did Supercross ever even make it off the ground? Bill Ryan calls it stubbornness, I call it passion and perseverance. So if you haven't watched episode 1 of the Supercross saga, make sure you go back and watch it. It's going to kind of explain how Bill Ryan even got into the industry with SE and then getting shipped off to GT. And as always, if you do like an underdog story, or if you just like to know the business side of things, make sure you support the channel. And you can do that by liking, subscribing, sharing the video. All of that goes a long way to help this project. Last time we left the hero of the story standing on his doorstep looking at a batch of BMX clothing his company Tech had made for S&M bikes, all sitting there with their patches stripped off. This was done in retaliation to Bill getting into the frame market. But let's take just a small step back to get a little better understanding of why Bill even wanted a frame company in the first place. Who in their right mind would want to get into a business that all signs pointed to failing before it even started? Well, you see, Bill Ryan didn't really set out to start an empire. He was just a punk kid who had bounced from SE to GT with a chip on his shoulder and a growing discontent for upper management. In the beginning, there was La Palma Cycle Center, a strip mall bike shop where Bill Ryan, barely out of his teens, tightened bolts and peddled dreams to kids who only wanted to ride BMX. It was 1987 or maybe 88, time didn't really matter in a place like that, but BMX had been leveling off from its early 80s success. And Bill was happy to just be part of the BMX scene after SE closed shop and GT wasn't working out. He sold a patch kit, $3, maybe $4, a sacrament of rubber and glue. Then the IRS descended, suits like vultures, badges glistening under fluorescent lights. They didn't ask questions, they slapped the cuffs on Bill's wrists as if a patch kit could topple a republic. The owner hadn't paid taxes and Bill was caught in the middle. They chained the door shut with metal screaming against metal. They did let Bill go because he wasn't ultimately the villain here. He called the owner who spun a tale of salvation. "It's all handled, Bill," the owner said. "Open the shop, I need the money to pay the debt." And Bill believed him, not because Bill was naive, but because the shop was more than a shop. It was where kids gathered out back, practicing gate starts, carving their own Eden in the asphalt. So Bill went to the back, got the bolt cutters, broke the chain, and for 1 week more, the world spun again. Then the IRS returned. Chains again, threats this time. "Next time, Bill, we're taking you." He stood in the parking lot and he saw the truth. La Palma Cycles was dead, and he needed to get out of there before he got in more trouble. But Bill really had this knack for using his stubbornness to fall upwards, in my opinion. His friends spoke of having their own oasis. "Build your own temple, Bill. Make it BMX, nothing else."
They're like, "Well, Bill, just start your own shop, man. Just start your own shop and make it 100% BMX and just do this." I spoke with Billy Harrison a little bit, spoke with Brian Lopes a little bit, spoke with Billy Griggs a little bit. I spoke with my wife a lot. She was just my girlfriend at the time, but, I knew she was going to be my wife. And, I'm like, what do we do? How do we do this? And she's like, well, she goes, do it. There's a place for rent down the street. And, we'll just turn that into the little Tech BMX shop and now at least have a place to ship stuff for Tech out of rather than our garage and, make things happen. So it wasn't a plan that we wanted to really have a bike shop, but it actually started to be a good thing.
Power Plus Cycles rose out of the ashes of SE closing, GT not being what Bill really wanted to do, and La Palma Cycle Center getting into some IRS trouble. Power Plus was just the next iteration of Bill's BMX dream. It was an avenue to sell his brands through. It was a BMX clubhouse that just so happened to be a BMX shop. He did have his crew: Billy Harrison, Brian Lopes, Bogey Givens, Bill Griggs, multiple people. It was riders from tech, professional racers, and just the fast kids that hung out at the shop. They were quick, but their bikes weren't. Frames flexed like wet noodles in the gate, and nobody would sponsor them. It's all covered in part 1. So Bill said, fine, we'll do it ourselves. It's 1989, and the idea hits like a fist. Supercross. The first frame, the SX250, wasn't just metal. It was a middle finger to the status quo. I don't know if Bill ever saw it that way, but I do love that framing. Oh, you mean no one will sponsor my friends? Screw it, I'll do it. No bike, no problem. I'll make a bike and make it better. 4130 chromoly, stiff as hell, built to snap out of the gate and eat jumps alive. They weren't chasing trends, they were chasing speed. And speed came. Riders like Lopes tore up tracks, and suddenly, people noticed. This wasn't some corporate cash grab. This was a tribe, a family, born from necessity in a sport that was losing its footing. But the Power Plus shop was never really set up properly to be a bike shop. Like I said, it was a BMX clubhouse. The boys had racing on the brain and would shut down early in a heartbeat if it meant that they could go practice. You have to remember how young all of them were. Bill is in his early 20s, and his employees would be even younger. The shop was doing well, don't get me wrong, but after Bill had to leave the shop in the hands of his employees for a bit because of a health scare, it was doing much worse than the way he left it.
It wasn't what I wanted it to happen, but we ended up closing the shop, 100% focused on tech and Supercross, put it back into a garage, and it wasn't what we wanted to do, but it's kind of what we were forced to do, and I think it ended up working out better in the long run for that.
At the time, it felt like a huge setback. The shop was steady income, but because of Bill's perseverance, it was actually a blessing in disguise. He had to pivot. And instead of worrying about the day-to-day at the shop, Bill was now focused solely on tech and Supercross. But it wasn't going to be easy, and he was running the whole operation from his garage. Another thing to remember here, Bill picked the not-so-perfect time to get into the BMX market. The late 80s and early 90s saw a huge decline in the racing scene, with freestyle starting to take over. Even if he did try to tackle the freestyle market, it would still be a ways out before it had a big resurgence, I would say. Mountain bikes were getting extremely popular, and I would argue that they were the most popular cycling discipline in the 90s, with a lot of pro BMXers switching over, because that's where the money was to be made. There was a lot going on in the world, and BMX was teetering on the verge of obscurity. But this is when Supercross grew thorns. Tech BMX faded, Supercross took over. Bill and his crew pushed harder. Frames got lighter, tougher, a little weirder, each one a step ahead. They were like decoding some secret language of velocity. They weren't just building bikes, they were building a mythology. Out in Apple Valley, where the desert stretched endlessly, they carved a niche for the outsiders, the riders who didn't really fit in with the big brands or the corporate sponsor checks. Supercross became a signal flare for the restless. And just when Supercross started to find its footing, a major setback was about to take place. Supercross, they were no empire at this point, 500 frames a month, barely a whisper against the giant companies of the time. They were using F&S distributors off the East Coast to get their bikes to the people via collect on delivery. Then one year as Christmas loomed, F&S howled, "Bill, send everything, your bikes are selling like hotcakes."
I hate to say this part of the story, but he almost put us out of business. I kept getting calls saying, "Hey, what do you got on the shelf? I need it all. The demand is hot. Everybody out here wants it. Everybody's loving it. I need everything you've got." And it's like, oh man, okay, let's try and do what we can. I can't give you everything because I've got to take care of my West Coast guys, but instead of doing $1,000 order, we would do a $6,000 order. And it was really quick to where we'd ship it out. And by the end of the week, when he'd get it, he'd say, "Hey man, everything showed up and it all shipped out already. It's all gone. I need more. I need more. I need more. I need more." And I'm like, wow, things are really going to go. This is going to be great. Things are really going to grow. They're going to really take off.
Sixfold, the shipment surge, a tide of steel and ambition. It was getting exciting, but the checks, they started bouncing. Accounting errors, F&S swore, then offered new payment, just as empty. One time is a mistake, but after the next few, Bill knew something was up. and he was worried.
Well, the next day we got the next check back. No good. Bounced. And I call him and I'm like, hey man, we just had this conversation yesterday, but now I got a second check that bounced. And he's like, yeah, it's still left over from everything that's going on. And man, Bill, I'm really sorry. Just put it back through. It'll be good. I'll make up for it, brother. You know, I'll get you taken care of. Here, let me take a bigger order off your hands. Let me get this. And, you know, man, I'm telling you, things are going. This is going to be great. And I'm like, wow, okay. Well, then the next day, another check bounces. And that day I get a call from Johnny, our welder, saying that he was out motorcycle riding and he broke his wrist and he's not going to be able to weld for us anymore. And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. He's like, yeah, I need like 6 weeks to get my wrist being better. And now I've got F&S bouncing all these checks on me. And it's right before Christmas of 94. By now, my wife and I have had a son. I've got to worry about supporting her. I've got to worry about supporting my son. And I called F&S and said, hey, what the hell? And he's like, hey, here's the number for my lawyer. I can't talk to you anymore. Call him. And I called his lawyer and they had filed bankruptcy. It was a planned thing where he was trying to get as much product from me as he could. And then he filed bankruptcy. And it really put me in a real bad position.
$20,000, frames, dreams, all gone. How in the world were they going to dig out of this hole? But Bill and his BMX family persevered. They didn't find some magic to get them back on track. They simply put their heads down and found a way to enjoy the grind. Slowly but surely, they got their footing back. They found a way to start doing most of the work in-house, and they didn't have to rely on anyone else to build their bikes anymore. But Supercross was never satisfied. They always wanted to be the best product for racing, and so they started to look at this new material in the bicycle world called carbon fiber.
Was that the test went great. Everything was great. Everybody loved the bike. Everything was good. Neil took off for another lap, came back carrying the bike in 2 pieces. We're done. We're over. I mean, a bad test in BMX Plus back then literally could kill any company. I mean, they were the authorities. BMX Action and BMX Plus, they were the authorities. And if they said your stuff sucked, then it sucked. And